Are you tired of fighting the same old dragons over and over again? Wouldn't you rather fight a new family of dragons? Or better yet, wouldn't you rather play as a new dragon species in your 5e or Pathfinder game? Well, now you can. Roll for Combat, the creators of the incredibly popular Battlezoo Ancestries dragons, have done it again with Battlezoo Secret Dragons. This collection of 4 dragon books introduces new families of dragons to the world of 5e and Pathfinder. Now you can play as, or fight, the dragon you never knew you needed. Inside each book, players will find complete rules for playing as one of these new unique dragons, allowing them to unleash new abilities and powers never seen before. Meanwhile, GMs will find pages of monster stats, allowing you to pit these new creatures against your players. Each book features one new family of dragons filled with extensive, in-depth descriptions of their powers and abilities, background and history information, world lore, illustrations, and more to help you introduce these new dragons into your 5e or Pathfinder games. Experience the world of Battlezoo Secret Dragons through 4 new books. Fairy dragons are connected with the Fey realm and love to play pranks and cause mischief. That is, when they aren't conspiring with the courts of the Fey. Misfit dragons are hot, magical messes of magical energy, constantly shifting their physical forms, phasing in and out of existence, or simply releasing random wild magic effects. They're quite a handful. Leshy dragons are deeply connected to nature, allowing them to grow alongside different types of plants, fungi, and leshies. Oh yeah, and they're master chefs as well. And finally, the powerful battle dragons are obsessed with the thrill of combat. Battle dragons love hunting foes, dueling opponents, or commanding their legions to glorious victory. Head over to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com now to secure your copies of Battlezoo Secret Dragons and become the dragon you were always meant to be.
Hello, everyone. You are going to be my guinea pigs. All right, are you ready? Everyone who's watching, all 87 right now, we put out a free guide to Battlezoo Eldamon today. And it is for Pathfinder, it is for 5e, it's something like 60 pages long. It has everything you need to build a elemental avatar or a Eldamon trainer up to level 2, I think. And
yeah, and it has a lot of what you need for all of the levels, but it doesn't have your powers past level 2. And it only has a few Eldamon and only has 3 of the elements. But it's a lot of free stuff.
And it's totally free. So if those of you on the fence, if you don't know if you want to try Eldamon or not, this is a free guide. And it just came out. And this is the link.
We need your help.
We need your help because some people are getting a 404 error, which is odd because I, who do this for a living, can't replicate this, and I can't even find it. And so people click on the link. It's free. There's nothing you need to do. Download the PDF. You can get it for 5e or Pathfinder or both. And if people are, just make sure you give me your steps so that I...
Type in the chat if you get the 404. We've seen 4 different people who have gotten the error 404 so far and have a product. The product is just missing.
Yeah, so I don't understand because it's working fine. So, don't know. Okay, Steph. Okay, you're getting 404. What is that? Where are you getting it? People got the 404.
And Jonathan got a 404.
Where are you getting it? Like, exactly where is this 404?
Vorpal Bike got a 404. A lot of people are getting the 404.
Yeah, but where? Where? On what? And what? On where is the 404 coming from? Is it coming on the page? Oh, the moment you click on the link? Okay, let's see.
And I bet if all of you who got a 404 go to battlezoo.com and try to search the free products, it won't exist for you. But it does for me. And it's not like I have an admin account or anything. I have a regular account on battlezoo.com. And it works for like a bunch of people, but not the rest.
It's working for me. Yeah. The moment you click the link, you get a 404 error.
Yeah, that's what a bunch of people have been saying before.
That is weird. All right.
All of you who are getting a 404, try going on Battlezoo.com, looking at the free products, and see if a Battlezoo Eldamon is even in there. If it's on the list of free products, like an Eldamon Player's Guide. I bet it won't be, because one of the other people who had that error says they can't find it, even on the list when they search the site themselves, whereas everyone else can find it. And it's very weird. We had one person clear their cache data, and it still doesn't show up.
Oh, wait. I see why.
Oh, you figured it out?
Yeah.
Thanks for the Turkish lira Khadgar.
Okay, I think I actually figured out why.
Steven solved it. Thanks all 122 viewers for figuring it out.
Okay, those of you who are getting the 404, what country are you in? That's why. Turkey said it was clean.
Turkey's zone was clear.
Yeah. Those of you getting the 404, I just need to know what country.
Anyone who's getting a 404 who wants to list their country, we've got Netherlands, Canada.
That's why.
Denmark. We know one of them was from Brazil.
Okay, it's an international issue. Okay.
But it worked in Turkey.
Yeah.
Canada.
Countries, regions. All right, hold on. Interesting. All right. I am gonna have to fix that. It has something to do. It has something to do with the countries. So.
Yeah, I think that's clear at this point.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Server
You helped us a
replication
bunch.
must be down. Yeah, that's what I told Mark. It's a server replication issue, and these countries are using a cached version, so it should show up once the countries update their caches.
Yeah, I said that it might be that, and I don't know enough to qualify that. But the first thing I asked you is, could it be region based? Because it
could be.
It seems like certain people had it and not other people who were doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
All right. You guys rock. Now we can get more into getting ready for D&D 2024, unless you have some pre-show mini topics other than that, Steven.
Yeah, let me see. Sorry, I'm having my lunch. I had a very crazy day. So those of you who are here, like, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. I have one mini topic, which is, well, I have a few, but the big one is that Game Informer magazine showed the art for the D&D Player's Guide. And I want people to know, I want people to look at it and tell me what you think of it, because I have opinions. Here we go. So here's the art for the Player's Guide, and it's got a lot of art. It's got a lot of art, but the Player's Guide itself, if you want to open it, if you just want to see just the Player's Guide, here's the Player's Guide. Let's see, I'm just going to write Player's Guide art. I'm actually lazy. I'm not bringing it up on the screen.
For the Player's Handbook?
Yeah, it's for the Player's Handbook. The funny thing is, it says at the top now, it says the world's greatest role-playing game, Dungeons and Dragons. It actually says that. And then it says Player's Handbook. And what do you think, Mark?
Well, I like the dragon.
Okay, it's a gold dragon, which is interesting because they're good. So they're not fighting it.
Yeah, they're not necessarily fighting it. It's kind of back there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little menacing, but their spells are pointed towards the kobolds in this one.
Correct.
And then they have a bunch of figures on here, and the kobolds are kind of have a really, I like the pose of the kobold on the right side, who's just like, "Rah!" and has their spear out. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. The one I am seeing here is looks a little blurry, but that may be the resolution that I'm looking at it at.
No,
just
that's
a little
it.
though.
That's what we have. I mean, it's not the greatest resolution. Yeah. So my issue, someone said it looks like a watercolor. So
maybe that's why it looked a little blurry to me, is that it was the watercolor.
So my issue with this is, okay, so I don't teach anymore, but I used to teach graphic design, and there's 4 design principles, and I use the acronym CRAP to remember them. It's contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. Those are the 4. You want 3 of them. You always want 3. And of the 4 in there's contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. I won't go into each of them, but those are the 4 principles of design. And for me, number 1, can you guess what number 1 is for me, Mark? Knowing me and seeing all the art that I do you know what number 1 is by far of those 4 that you always need?
I mean, usually you would want the one that you put first to be number 1, which would be contrast, but I don't know if that is.
It is correct. You are correct. Contrast is the most
because you have
important.
those bright contrasting colors. I thought it might be.
They're not. This is not contrast. In fact, this is actually not contrasted when you look at this. This is a very, I wouldn't call it plain, but it's kind of a, you just said it without even realizing it, and that's the secret of design, is that you said it looks a little washed out, it looks a little hard to read. This is the image. This is what it's going to look like. So there is no cut. This is what you're going to see. And that is you saying the quiet part out loud without realizing it, is that there's not enough contrast. I think, now this is the thing, it can be fixed. That can be fixed in post, as they say. You can add more depth and make the background a little darker so the foreground pops more. So I like to have, so in this, there's minimum of 3 layers. There's the kobold in the front in the lower left-hand corner. There's the adventurers and the kobold in the middle, and the dragon behind. So there's 3 levels, okay? I would like to see, if I was the art director, I want to see those 3 levels clear. I want to see the dragon in the back, and I want to see each of these. I don't want them all mushed into one level. And I think the composition is fine. I would probably make the adventurers bigger. I think they're too small. I think they should almost fill up the screen. There's way too much white space on the left side. And keep the dragon the same size, because there's more than enough room if you made the adventurers bigger. The kobold in the beginning in the left-hand corner, probably make it a little smaller, maybe move it over a little bit to the left. And then I would increase the contrast. Otherwise, it's good. I mean, I think it just needs a little work, and I don't know if this is final, but that's personally my opinion, because in today's world, people are blind to design, and you really need contrast, and you need something to make it stand out. You need something that grabs your attention, and contrast will do that even if you're blind to images and imagery, because you're looking at colors and shapes at this point. And that's kind of why movie posters, they all use, it's called the orange and blue phenomenon. If you notice, every movie poster has orange and blue because they're very contrasty colors, and they'll have orange on one side, blue on another. And there's a reason why every single person does it. It kind of works because it will grab your eye, even if, even if you might not look at the poster for more than 1 second, at least grab your eye for that 1 second, because those colors sort of grab you. And that's why you do it. So that's sort of my issue with this, is that I think it's partially there, but I think it just needs a little bit of work. Especially compared to their old covers. Their old covers, I mean, again, this is one of those, they didn't know how good they had it until they had it. There's so much contrast and just so much going on, and it's telling a story, especially the DMG, the first edition. It's just fantastic. It's just, you still look at it and you just like stare at it thinking, oh, these guys are stealing that gem. I have it here. It's like, oh, what are they doing? What are they? Oh no, not the DMG, sorry, the Player's Handbook, the original Player's Handbook. As I'm dropping everything, they're like, oh, what's going on there? They're, it's like they're stealing the gem. Who's this idol? What are these dead guys going on? There's a story, but the contrast here is you can clearly see the difference between the foregrounds and backgrounds, and then obviously you have the flame in this dark area and sort of contrasting. This is not perfect, but for the time it was very, very, very good. So
I feel like the one that they have now, if they made those few changes that you said, I would definitely like better than that first edition one. But again, that you're right, at the time art was done differently overall.
No, people didn't even know. This stuff was just, you either knew it or you didn't. No one had sorry. Mark, I'm dying. Talk.
Oh, okay, but I don't know what was happening at the time with art. I am just saying that I like what they're doing with this. I do admit that my response was I like it, but it does look a little blurry. And then you explained why it looked blurry to me, which was a combination of the watercolor art style and the way that the dragons, brownish golds, kind of blended in the background. And I think if they could do a couple of those small changes in post, that I would wind up liking this a lot better than the one you showed from first edition. Yeah. But that's because it is a product of its time, and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of art has moved to the point where I feel like it has gotten really fantastic and technical, moving forward. And back then, the art budgets were obviously a lot lower as well.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is that there is a full screen version of this, because it's actually it's much bigger. And if you look at the full screen cover, it here, I'll put a link of it. It actually looks a lot better, full screen, and you can actually see the contrast. In fact, here, you're all getting a lesson in art.
Yeah, let me see the full screen one. I'm very curious.
Here it is, the full screen image. And this actually has what I was describing. This has a lot more contrast to it.
Oh, whoa. That was a red dragon, not even a second kobold. That's why it looks so big.
Oh, look at that. Okay.
Wow, the cover loses a lot by
do you see the difference
from the big one?
Right, now
this
do you
is,
see
this
there
is fantastic. The contrast is more with the extra blue on the other side.
Yes.
We can see that that's a red dragon and not a kobold who's just a very close-up face.
Yeah, I mean, you see the difference? That's the problem, is that you look at this definitely has contrast, because it's in the corners. And then you see the light source in the middle, but then they just sort of...
the dark mountain is sort of contrasting. I like this way better with the full piece. This is great. Maybe it has the thing you said about the size of the heroes compared to everything else, maybe, but I think it's still fine. And this is great with the full one.
Yeah, I think they looked at this, and this is fine. I mean, again, I would probably do even more contrast and clean it up a little bit. It's good even as is. But the problem is when you cut it and then cut off the sides, all that contrast on the sides is gone, and then you get this washed out image. So there's your 101 design. Yeah,
and you lose the fact that the one at the bottom is a red dragon somewhat.
I didn't even know.
Or at least I didn't know until I saw this big one. I thought it was a kobold.
Yeah, because there's kobolds and they look very similar. So
that explains why they're all looking at the bottom. Right. I was thinking, why is the gold dragon working with them against these kobolds? It didn't make sense, but they needed to team up because it's probably a very powerful red dragon.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And that's why... So when we do our covers, I do wraparound covers, but I tell the story. We make sure that the front and the back are one story, but hold their own. And a good example of that, even more than other
What about
books.
World of Battlezoo? It's got
World of Battlezoo, exactly.
Yeah, it's got a party on the front.
It's got a party on the front and a party on the back.
And it's other people are to hang out on the back, but you don't need to know that they're doing that to know about the party on the front.
Yeah, you don't need to know. And if you look at it, it's one image of the party.
Yeah, it's one big party. The booth that's selling things or whatever it is on both sides. Yeah. I think that stood out to me. I knew you were going to pull that one because of the way that the front and the back kind of work.
So there you go. And there, by the way, that's the difference between a designer and a non-designer. Is that you can, at least I like to think that, is that you can explain why something works or doesn't work, as opposed to it's like you were saying, it just looks washed out. I'm like, well, this is.
Well, I was saying it looked blurry.
Or blurry, but this is why, and
Yes. No, I feel like empowered to describe what I saw more now that I understand the techniques more.
Yeah. But anyhow, those are so contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. Alignment and proximity, basically, I use a business card as an example, is that like alignment means, keeping things in alignment that are alike, like an address. Like you wouldn't want to have an address like all over the place. Proximity is same thing, is that you keep like things near proximity. And then repetition is that after 3 of something, people will expect to see it. That has more to do with like magazines and stuff. Like if like the size of a headline, the size of a subhead, where page numbers are, things like that. So you want to make sure you put in repetition and that you don't go crazy. And you could even mix up the repetition if you have different styles for headers. But if you're going to have different styles for headers, then you have to put the headers in the same locations, because then that's the repetition. Like that's when you get more advanced. So there you go. That's everything. That's literally the 4 principles of all design. There's more, but that's it. And good design is 3 of them usually, or 4 always. And bad design will have less than that. So anyhow, let's see, what else do we have? We have other things. The only other thing I wanted to talk, I almost did a full thing on this, is, I don't know, this seems like a greedy move, but I guess it makes sense for them, is that, did you see Critical Role has made their own channel? And if you want to find Critical Role, they made a new channel, hold on, I'm finding the name, called Beacon. So they launched Beacon subscription, streaming, and member service. Members get early access, exclusive shows, event ticket pre-sales, and it's $5.99 a month, and you basically get everything ahead of time. And I think
that seems fine, because they're still giving it to everybody afterwards.
I didn't say that.
What?
I didn't say that. Well, for now, existing streaming content will be available always on Twitch and YouTube. Right. Right now. But they say that, and if anything has taught me, is that for now. And already the Twitch numbers have gone way down. And
interesting. I think that because a lot of people wanted to support them, and it offers them a relatively low impact way. They don't have to go in and cheer on Twitch to support them and get it sooner, so they can be talking about it sooner with other critters. Like, I feel like that's just like they're thinking of a way to do things, and Twitch doesn't take a cut on it for that. So like, as long as it's like this is early and other people can get it for free. Now you're right, if they change it to just like we're going to keep upping the price and this is the only way you can get it, then that's going to be a different story, and that's going to be more of a sea change, to me at least.
Well, my other concern is that it always seems like a good idea at a time when things are going well. But when things don't go well, like right now, it's like, okay, we're going to make our own channel. Great. What are you going to put on the channel? Now, it looks like they have enough content for now, but if they keep upping the price, people are going to be like, okay, what is on here that I'm not getting? And as soon as it becomes a very slippery slope, because if you don't like what you're getting and you're paying the price for it, then you will cancel your subscription and maybe not go back or ever go back. Having something for free is a big incentive because there's a very low cost barrier to entry. So, I've seen this happen tomorrow. I mean, I could go out of coincidence. I was talking to someone about this, about how Disney Plus, to basically create content for Disney Plus, they redid their entire structure for the MCU and Star Wars to create content for Disney Plus, and in the process sort of killed those properties, because it became, we need content for these properties, but these properties have a different demographic than the movies, therefore we're going to have to make it not for core audiences. And this is something Mark and I are talking about right now, which is core audiences, is that they started to go for general audiences rather than core audiences. And then they started to piss off the core audience because they were going for general audience. So now we're really getting in the weeds. But do you know what I'm saying, Mark? You know what I'm saying? Like, they basically, like, when they were coming out with Marvel movies, they were coming out with Marvel movies for core audience people hoping that they would bring their friends and it would become an event. And it did, and it worked. And then when they went to Disney Plus, they were coming out with things that will go towards specific markets and demographics they were hitting, which had nothing to do with the core audience, because they assumed the core audience will just see it no matter what. So we could ignore them. Instead, we're going to create products for demographics that weren't watching this,
to try to get the whole world to
Right.
watch it, rather than to make sure that that subset was really deeply invested, I guess.
Yes. Like, for example.
Well, because it's, I guess if you're a company and you need to grow,
Right.
always be growing, then I understand how that mindset can wind up with, which I think is not a good mindset to have, but that is natural for profits have to always increase, to be like, well, how can we get it to people who aren't doing it now? But
Yeah.
I prefer something that caters to be the best it can be for the people who would love it. Just make something that you love and that those people could love, even if it doesn't cater to literally every demographic.
Well, that's the problem. That's, I know, but they weren't doing that. And here's
Yeah.
a different example. Is, I won't get into it, but basically, you know, the core audience will just say, I'm just going to use things that aren't humans, so it makes more sense. It's like, okay, the core audience for Marvel movies was dogs of teenage dogs. Okay, we'll just say, make something up, and that's who was
teenage
seeing
dogs
it.
like really old.
Well, I'm using human years, so say teenage
Okay.
dogs. But then they're like, okay, we're gonna make this service, and we already have all the teenage dogs subscribed to it, and I'm assuming the teenage dogs are gonna watch these. So we need to expand. So we're gonna make a new Marvel movie, but we're gonna target that to female cats that are 3 to 5. That's what we're making it, and we'll make it for them, and the other people will just watch it. They'll just assume it because they're such hardcore fans. And we'll just keep doing that. And it didn't work because then they got neither. So it's like, okay, you're losing everyone. And then when you lose everyone and you lose the hardcore, you're going to lose those people too. And my reasoning for reason I'm getting into that is that this happens a lot. This happens on Disney. This happens on Netflix. This happens on Peacock. It happens on HBO Max. Like, this is what happens whenever you start going down this rabbit hole of opening.
It seems like streaming services
they just do it.
They just
all do
want,
it.
they're a hungry monster that wants to grow and grow and
Correct.
grow and grow, and then eventually they're over budget and they haven't hit what they wanted to do because they're doing everything based off of an algorithm that tells them to hit certain demographics.
Correct. And in fact, my concern is that if they're going down this road, it's like things are okay now, but if Critical Role starts to get greedy and starts to go after, you know, these different audiences, and I hate to say it, but I think they're kind of doing that because
Are they?
yes,
This
because,
seems like it's
No,
going
well,
towards their core
I'll tell you
people.
why. Well, I'll tell you
Why
why.
is this not?
Because a couple weeks ago, they had, remember the big death? They had the big
Sure,
death.
yeah.
And everyone was super excited. And I even tuned in, and I haven't watched them in a long time. And I wanted to see what the, you know, how they were going to follow that up. And what did they do? Is instead of having a big follow-up, they all got up and they brought in a new cast and they did a side story. And I can see that they're thinking, okay, we're going to have all these people coming in to watch it. This is the perfect opportunity to switch gears and have everyone watch our other channel so we can get 2 channels worth of content and people will now watch both.
Steven, maybe they needed time to figure out what to do after that major pivot.
They planned this because they keep in mind they recorded this once a week.
It seemed
No, because
like
they had to plan the other people to come in. That's not something they
I
just
see.
do. This was a whole different cast.
If they planned this,
They did.
then that means that they knew that was going to be there before they knew he was going to die.
Maybe they were looking for. I don't know, but to put it this way, it was a weird
But they
time
did
to
know
bring
they
him
were going to
in.
do it after a huge major campaign
Maybe.
villain.
I don't know.
Right? Because they knew they were fighting a big villain that time. So they did know they were going to pivot then after the end of
or
that
maybe
arc.
right after that they decided. The point is that if you look at the numbers, exactly what happened is what you think happened. Did everyone leave the stream? Yes, everyone left the stream. No one wants to watch someone else on a storyline that hasn't been picked up in years that no one remembers. Everyone wanted to know, like, that is like such a gut punch, and I can't believe they did that. And it took them weeks before they picked up the main storyline, and by then it was too late. And it's just like, that's an example of like, either there's a couple. Either, yes, A, maybe they weren't ready for it and they needed time. That's fine. I would have even just said that. I would have said, I don't think they did. I would have just said, you know what, we need a little time to regroup. In the meantime, we're going to go to a side story. But they didn't.
But you said the side story was planned in advance, so it sounds like that was just the end of the arc. I
mean, it was a side story they came back to with a different cast. So it wasn't like the same cast. So they had to... I don't know how quickly they were able to get those people. You know, I don't know if it was... They were able to literally call them that week and say, hey, look, someone just died this week. We need to see if you guys be here next week and record, you know, for the next couple of weeks. You know, they do all those shows in one day too. They could do 3 episodes in one day. So they're like, because they're pre-recorded now, they're like, okay, yeah, sure. You know, maybe they could. I don't know what the answer is, but my point is like that, in my opinion and how other people took it, was a missed opportunity, and it seemed cheap that they were trying to use the death to show people a different channel, a different story of their product. And I'm like, what? Why? What? You know, everyone wanted to know what happened. And if you look at the numbers go like this, and as soon as the new people come in, everyone stops watching. It's like, because no one wanted to watch that. You know, that's an old trick. They would used to do that all the time. You know, remember that they would have like a big show, like the lead in, and then they would put in, you know, they would move the big show. They would have like 3 shows in a row on NBC. You know, they'd have like the Cosby Show, if you remember, and then they would have like Cheers, and they have something else. And then they would get rid of like, okay, this show at 8:30 or 9 o'clock is doing fantastic, but we really want this show to do well, so we're going to move our fantastic show. We're going to move Cheers and put in Bosom Buddies instead. And sure enough, you know, once in a while, it's extremely rare that other show would do well, but most times it would just crash and burn and everyone would stop watching because no one wants to see the other show. You know, they're trying to do a lead-in, it's called, but they were trying to do a lead-in.
So I'm just gonna have to agree to disagree with you on the price thing. I think Kurth had a good way to think about it. It costs, I think, $5 a month to subscribe to a channel on Twitch. So this is about the same price as people who were just subscribers on Twitch, except I know this because I have a Twitch streamer. The channel gets half of that. They only got $2.50.
Critical Role has their own deal with Twitch.
Okay, sure. They probably do. You're right. They're not an affiliate anyway. They're a partner, and they're like the partner. So they probably get way better. You're right. I was thinking in affiliate terms, but they are not an affiliate. However, they don't get all of it. And in this way, they're not beholden to Twitch. They're not beholden to Amazon or Google and how the algorithm changes things, right? They can just be like, we know you were going to subscribe to us, pay, and it'll all go to us, or whatever cut is taken by their site, which is probably much lower than Twitch for their own service. I think this is not a big deal yet. You're right that maybe they could morph it into something else, but they haven't so far. So I'll be the first one saying you were right and I was wrong if this turns into something bigger than it is. But for now, I think it's not that different. Okay. So I'll disagree with you on this particular one.
Well, I'm just worried. I didn't say it's going to do that. I'm just saying it could. That's all. And then it keeps happening.
Yeah, no. So. I don't think you're wrong that it could.
It might take years. It might never happen. Who knows? It's just whenever this happens, because there's a lot of overhead for your own channel. Like there's a lot. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of money. I mean, if anyone could do it, they could probably do it. So, you know, I'm not that worried, but it's found it interesting. I mean, it was a big news. So, but all right, why don't we get into this week's topic? And you can lead us off because you had a good take on this that I just made up this topic because I thought.
Yeah, this week's topic is about getting ready for D&D 24 and getting ready for this new edition change. And it's not a big edition change, right? It's mostly the same edition with an update, but it is a type of edition change, the kind of thing that has happened before numerous times in D&D history. And so, you know what, though? Usually there's an edition change sooner than this. I think that the only one that is as long for what I would consider an edition change would be like maybe like AD&D second edition to 3.0. But 3.0 to 3.5 was an edition change. 4E was an edition change. Essentials 4E had some things that were edition changes by my definition, where they go to a new update of the core set. 5E was, and then it's been quite a while. You know, it's been 10 years. So there are a number of people who have joined the hobby in those 10 years. The only thing they've played for D&D is D&D 2014 5th edition. And so this may be your first edition change. Steven and I, and I'm sure some of the other people in Roll for Combat chat, have been through a lot of edition changes. And so this is an opportunity to talk about what should you expect from an edition change, and from D&D 2024 style edition change in particular, of which there have been a few in the past. Basically, how you can react to it, like Steven said in the description, how you can prepare if you have an active campaign, if you're about to start a new one, you're thinking of getting into the game. What does it mean for you now? What does it mean for book purchases? What does it mean for campaign starting? I feel like that is where we can offer our expertise in this video.
So what do you want to cover?
So essentially, that's sort of the outline of what I wanted to cover. So basically, if this is your first edition change, then it's not going to be a big one. You may have heard of people who were like, oh, wow, when AD&D changed into 3rd edition, like everything changed. It's completely different. Or in 4th edition, when everything changed to encounters and daily powers and at-will powers and the whole meta of different types of classes changed, or from 4th to 5th, those were big shifts. This is a smaller shift. What that means for you strategically in terms of books and in terms of campaigns is that you probably can get a lot of use out of a campaign that you're converting over or old products, but you do still need to be a little wary of it. Here's why. Anytime that there's an edition that's compatible, sometimes editions say they're compatible, but they're not really that compatible. This one looks like it's going to be, at least for adventures, pretty compatible. The classes are going to be different. Some of the balance is going to be different, but D&D 5th edition's balance was already kind of like a wide spectrum. It wasn't very narrow and tight. And so the difference that's going to be in here in 2024 doesn't look like it's going to surpass the sort of the intra D&D 2014 disparities in balance by the difference between 2014 and 2024. That is a good thing for being able to use your D&D 2014 products. Maybe it's not a good thing for making it easy to balance your encounters or your games, but in terms of compatibility, it generally makes it easier to use things back and forth between them. However, all that said, what reality has proved out with these small edition changes is that even though things are very compatible and you probably can use them and won't have too many issues, in reality, a lot of users are more likely not to use them. You're likely to run into GMs or DMs who just want to use the newer stuff just to make sure, especially if they're ones who aren't into third-party products, homebrewing, and making their own content, and they're just like, well, we want to make sure it's the ones that are official with this new set. And as time goes by, you'll find that especially this time, which is different than all the previous ones, with digital tools and compatibilities, you're going to find that it may get harder to use some of the older stuff than you thought for like small or unusual reasons. So I think you're going to find over time that you get less and less likely to be able to use it unless you have a lot of control over your situation. Like you're in a home group, you're the GM, or you know them, and everyone's like, yeah, let's keep using our old content. So that's sort of the possibilities versus the reality, at least as I've seen it, when 3.0 went to 3.5 or any of those other minor shifts in terms of using your products. In terms of continuing a campaign, well, that is one of the few times when you often will be able to use your old products reliably, because very often groups are pretty I would say, nice about the fact that, oh, you know what, my thing has a bunch, my character has a bunch of stuff that's not in the new version yet, but it's fine, right? Like, we've played with this character, we can keep using it. And you usually, almost always, you'll be able to when you have a compatible edition change like this one, unless your group are really, really sticklers and are like, nope. Or if the digital tools somehow start running into some issues for you.
So one thing that always happens with past editions is that they were new updates. So like when you went from version 1 to you went to well, I won't even say version. Okay. I was in college when version 2 of D&D came out, and it was a big deal. And I remember going and buying the book and, you know, reading about it, and it was very exciting, and it was as different as can be. You know, it was night and day. You can't even compare the two, how different they were. And that was the one with Thaco. And then obviously 3rd edition was very different. And 3.5 was so different that no one even played 3 after that. It was just like, you know, it was a new edition. You know, you could call it 3 and 3.5. You might as well call it 3 and 4 because they were so different. 4 was completely different than 5. So every one of those
3.5 wasn't that different. It was pretty different, but it was much more similar than 2 and 3.
It was it was similar in style and substance, but it was so different in terms that they updated the rules to the point that you really couldn't play both versions, nor would anyone want to, because also 3.5 was so superior than 3 that it wasn't like, oh, I want to keep playing 3. I don't know anyone who did that. Everyone's like, oh no, we're going to 3.5. Like, it was just superior.
One of the things for that happened was that some of the early 3.0 source books just had a lot of unbalanced stuff in them because, you know, nobody knew how to write new content for that style of game because it had just come out. Right. So 3.5 was kind of a reset button that offered people the opportunity to say, I'm not using the 3.0 content because it's not 3.5. Right.
Yeah, it was just
so like I've used some 3.0 and 3.5. It works fine, but it was a convenient opportunity to be like, yeah, Ninja of the Crescent Moon is gone now. Like, it had full base attack bonus and on max on all saves and a bunch of high hit dice. It was just like, it had like everything. There were other things like that too. I just happened to remember that one had a pretty stacked chassis.
Yeah, my point was that the chassis and the structure of the games were the same. You're 100% right, but the rules were completely different in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, in theory, you could use them together, but no one did because it was just like night and day. What's different now is that this is so weird. It's like, and Pathfinder just did that. It's like, well, it's not a new edition. It's an update to an existing edition. So this is going to be new for me, as this is going to be new for everyone. And yes, we just went through this with Pathfinder, but I'm going to be very curious to see how this works for D&D and see how different it is, because they keep saying that everything will be compatible. It'll be 100% compatible. So is it really a new edition? Is it just a splat book? Is it no different than a third party coming out with new rules for existing classes? You know, what is this? I don't even know what this is. It
is an edition change, but an incremental one. Right. Okay. We've seen in the Unearthed Arcana, we've seen in the previews what they're going for. It's an attempt to like fix certain issues that some of the classes had. Like the monk had some serious problems. And Steven, I know you haven't been paying attention to all the Unearthed Arcana, but
the monk I did.
Surely the monk, because that's one that affected us a lot because of the fact that there wasn't good monk itemization inherently in 5e, and we had to figure it out for monster parts what we were going to do with monks. And so we had that whole discussion about it. So they're trying to fix certain things, kind of tighten some things up, and it's kind of one of those smaller incremental edition shifts, like the remaster for Pathfinder, it looks like, or 3.5, which actually is a smaller incremental shift. I know Steven talked about how it was completely different at first, but it was pretty similar. Like, if you go and compare the two of them, now the changes they made, they substantially altered the game. And one of the ways they did it was by not letting you use some of the 3.0 content, but also They balanced some broken options. They helped bring up some options that didn't have things. They added features to certain classes, and that is very similar. The 3.0, 3.5 change is probably the most similar to what I'm seeing here in D&D 2024. So if you have gone through a lot of edition changes, I think it's going to be like that. And it will have people like Steven who are just like 3.5 is vastly superior. You have Derek in the chat who completely disagreed and put 3.0 within like 20 greater than signs and then 3.5 and then made a smiley face for Steven.
Derek's just wrong.
And you'll have people who think it both ways. That's another, well, you know what? That was one of the next things I wanted to talk about for people to expect, what to expect with an edition change, whether it's a smaller one like this or not. What you need to expect from an edition change is there's going to be some friction that's based on the rules, but there's going to be some friction that's based on the fan base. What does that mean? Well, you're going to have some people who really, really love the new changes. Maybe there's one thing they don't like, and they'll be like, the thing I don't like is this, but the rest is great. Kind of like how I really love the new names for a lot of things in Pathfinder Remaster, but the language Fey instead of Sylvan, I don't like that as the name of a language, right? But overall, I'm very positive. You'll have people that are totally positive, they're even beyond that, that are just like, any change that's made in this is the best, and if you don't like even one of them, then forget about you. You'll have people who are very positive with a few things they don't like. You'll have people who are like, there's some I like, there's some I don't. I'll pick and choose what I want. You'll have people that are mainly negative, but maybe there's a thing or two they like. And you'll have people who are like, I hate this. It's no longer Dungeons and Dragons now that they made the monk stronger. In my fantasy, monks are weak. And I don't understand why they made them stronger and why they made these changes. And this is it. It is a different game now. And it's a great for the game that it is, but it doesn't count. You'll have people who are saying something like that, right? And you have this spectrum. And because you have this spectrum, you know, we can rank those from 1 to 5, where like 5 are the ones who really like it, and 1 are the ones who really don't like it. And 2 through 4 can usually get along with each other. But 1 can't get along with really anybody else, even 2 sometimes. And 5 can't really even get along with 4 because they'll have one thing they didn't like about it. 5 is just like everything was perfect. And so you will have some addition, warring, and friction in the fan base every time. Every time. And that's just how it's going to go. It is impossible to deliver an update that doesn't cause some of that. So the best thing that you viewing this can try to do is think about where you are when you read it on that spectrum that I just gave. Be like, oh yeah, I may be a 4. Oh no, I'm a 5. I love this. I'm a true believer. Think about the fact that other people are throughout the spectrum due to their own reactions and feedback. It doesn't negate your reaction to the rules content. It doesn't make you wrong that they feel a different way. And try to have empathy towards people who feel the other way, just like Steven can have some empathy towards Derek loving 3.0 and not liking 3.5. And Derek can have some empathy towards Steven there. And, you know, they're still buddies and they don't get into big fights over that on the internet unless it's just for fun to be like a little conflict. That's going to be important. Any community you're in, Discord, Reddit, message boards, just exercise a little empathy during an edition change, a little more than you normally would. Try to read tone on the internet as being a little nicer than you usually would, and try to make it a little bit of a cheerier place because it's going to get a little dark. It just always does.
Well, my weird thing is, I mean, I guess Pathfinder did this, is that they're releasing the books not all at once. So now Pathfinder was able to do this because the remaster really was a remaster. So you didn't really need to have the new monster core if you wanted to use. In fact, you can still use all the original Pathfinder monsters. They work just fine. So I don't know. I mean, I guess if they're releasing them over the course of 6 months, the 3 main books, this really is just going to be an update. I mean, it's just going to be an update to 5.0. And
I mean, that's what they have always said. You didn't always believe them, and I understand why you didn't, because at some of the times they were saying that, they were also saying some other things in messaging. But that's what they've always said, is that it's just going to be an update. And it's still going to be basically the same game.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess it is. I mean, I guess they're just going to have to do that. They're going to have to just make it different, but I don't know. It's a shame because it's a good opportunity for them to update and fix things, but I guess until we see it, we all have no idea. But
I mean, it's a risk for them to do that, though. If they want to make a big dramatic change, then they could wind up, throwing out the baby with the bathwater, especially since they've got this edition that was hugely successful and has some secret sauce that's making it successful, but they may not know exactly what that is. In my experience, tabletop RPG companies don't always know exactly what made a particular huge success so successful. They only have the ability to guess. And so whenever you're doing that, and this is why I guessed, by the way, back when we were all doing our prognostications and guessing how different it was going to be, and I turned out to be right on this. I guess on game design stuff, I'm accurate. On business decisions, Stephen, you're pretty much always right. But on this, I guessed that it was going to be pretty similar, because I guessed that they would be kind of afraid to make major changes when they're not sure what about it is what's making it super popular.
yeah,
And I think that's borne out.
Yeah, but keep in mind, they made the original version based on customer feedback, and now there seems like they're making the updates based on customer feedback. So,
I mean, that's certainly true.
They did it once, so like, all right, well, now we'll do it again. So we'll see.
But you have to guide customer feedback, right? They have ideas about what they're doing. Obviously, even if you're really sure about something, if 80% of your customers say the opposite, you don't want to go against 80%. Even if it's a survey and you know that that's a very stilted sample of only the people who answered that survey, it is dangerous, right? There have been sometimes in Pathfinder 2, for example, where we went with the 80% that later a lot of people were like, yeah, I was in that 80%. You should have not listened to us for a few of the changes. We were actually wrong. Now that we've played the game for enough time, we have a different opinion. But it's too much hubris and arrogance as a game designer to assume that this is one of those times, because most times that doesn't happen. If 80% say something, that's what they think later on too. And just because you can pick and choose, and I could be like, yeah, there's like maybe two or three things out of like 50 that people in hindsight were like, yeah, the designers were probably right. But of the other like 47, people either just, it's been inconclusive or just like, no, we still agree with that. So it's always more or less better to go with 80% or more of your fans, unless you're not Dungeons and Dragons, you're a smaller game, you're a smaller product, and you're like, this is about my vision. And if we do what 80% of people say, it's moving away from your vision. But that's not what like a big market leader can do anyway.
So we have a couple. You have Knights of Last Call, Eric saying Edition War, someone's wrong on the internet. Yeah, no kidding. And then he has the game remains the same. The game remains the same. For those who don't know, you can look up, there was these, it's so funny, I totally forgot about them until I saw them again. Someone found the promotional videos for when 4th edition came out, and they're really funny. They're really good. They're really funny. I remember seeing them, and one of the big parts is that they wanted to assure people that the game will remain the same. And the guy had an accent, so it came out saying the game remains the same. He didn't say the, he said Z. So, and they said it over and over again. It's like the game remains the same. The game remains the same. So it's the game remains the same, which is only funny because the difference between 4th edition and 3.5 couldn't be more different if you tried. The game did not remain the same in any way, shape, or form. It was totally different and 100% incompatible with one another.
Not only that, but
the only thing that remained the same is it was called Dungeons and Dragons. That was it. There was nothing else to say.
That particular ad was interesting because it was trying to say that the game remained the same, but it was also sort of poking fun at people who played in any of the older editions. Like in a way where you could be like, yeah, I've seen that happening in those editions. But at the time, it wasn't received very well because people sometimes felt personally attacked that this was like making fun of them for liking the edition that they liked. when you watch it now, it's just like, yeah, it's just lighthearted fun about the other editions. But at the time, I know people's feelings got hurt by that ad, even though it was trying to say the game remains the same in part of itself. Like on one side of the mouth, the other side was kind of like, look at how like weird these people were who were playing the other ones, whereas the ones playing 4E are cool. It was an interesting ad campaign. I'm sure somebody somewhere has done like a paper on what happened with the 4E ad campaign. What's the other super chat that you found?
Tiger Eyes wrote, eats popcorn and ready to watch drama, stopped at 3.5. That was it.
Ah, fair enough.
That's all they said. Yeah, I guess it's just going to be a new version of the existing version everyone already has, and nothing's going to change. It's all going to be the same.
I mean, there's significant changes. Like 3.5 had. There's going to be significant changes, but it's going to remain mostly compatible. It's mostly going to be an update that tries to bring in the most out of whack options from the original version, maybe tighten up some of the presentation. You've seen that in the Game Informer article that Stephen linked earlier on, which you can read. You can see them talking about it. It's got new art. So it's kind of like one of the reasons that companies do this is that they learn a few things about their original core set of books partway through the edition from customer feedback, and they want something that's easier to use, that will draw people in, that is more effective based on actual problems that people have with it over that time. And Wizards has said that they've done that. Another reason companies sometimes want to do this is because core sets sell the most. I mean core sets, not like the outfit corset. Core sets sell the most. Nothing will ever sell as well as your core set. And doing a relaunched core set still sells pretty well. It usually will get a large percentage of people to not only buy it again, but other people will see it as a launching in point for your tabletop RPG, because they would be like, well, there's 10 years of books out there for 5e. I don't know if I should start now. I'm going to be behind. Even if I get only the official WotC ones, there's dozens of books. There's thousands of third-party products. This is overwhelming. But if I start at 2024, I can be in on the ground floor with this new edition update. I can just start collecting from there. And so you usually do quite well financially for starting a new one. So when you combine in the fact that the money people want money, and the game designers are like, there are ways we could have done this better. There are ways we could have presented this better. People are bouncing off our game because of this, and we can reformat it. It's inevitable that you're going to eventually see some kind of pressure to try to do a relaunched core set, unless your edition changes so rapidly that you can't even do that because you're just moving on.
So what do you recommend people do? I guess they just continue playing their games, and like, say I'm in the middle of a game and this is coming out. What do you recommend?
So if you're mid-campaign, I think keep playing your campaign. You'll be fine. When this comes out, it's going to come out slowly over time. Decide which, if any, updates you would like to apply to your game. Like, someone's playing a monk, you probably want to let them use some of the updated monk stuff. But maybe somehow that's incompatible with their monk, and you can work that out on a case-by-case basis until the game is over. You could also, if your group is like, this is a lot of complexity to do that kind of revamping, you could just be like, we're going to press pause until this campaign is over, and then we'll go and apply some of the 2024 stuff. That's perfectly fine. As a game designer, I'm fine doing all sorts of weird game design tweaks, so I would be all over the let's tweak it, let's figure out what we're going to do. But if your group is like, that's a lot of work, let's just stick with it until the campaign is over, that happens. Especially for bigger edition shifts, you sometimes have to. I still have a game that's in Pathfinder first edition because we're on the last session and we need everyone, because the GM is like, we need 100% attendance for the final boss. And it just couldn't convert, mainly because of my character is very much not covered by the Pathfinder 2 rules. A lot of the other characters we probably could redo, but also it's just so near the end that it was just worth it to finish it out, and it's still in Pathfinder 1. So you can keep playing, you can adjust, it'll be fine. Even if you start a new campaign right now, you're going to be okay, because the changes that are there are not going to like drastically alter your campaign to the point that it's going to cause you problems, at least as far as I've seen.
What happens if you're the DM, though? And what happens if you're online? Because, you see, a lot of these online tools have to use the new rules, whether you want to or not.
Yeah. So that's where it can come into some issues. One thing that, like, I thought, let's go back to the Pathfinder Remaster. I thought this is easy, you know, we can just do some things with OGL or some things with Orc, and it's going to be fine, because we need OGL for certain monsters, we need Orc for other ones. Sometimes we have our choice of which one we want to use, if it's with, you know, Well for Combat made it up ourselves, or it's something that's in both licenses. But as it turns out, due to the way Foundry implemented the update for Pathfinder, and I'm using Pathfinder as an example, what could happen for 5e as well, because one of the changes in particular to alignment damage that changed from like good and evil damage to like damage that had the holy or unholy trait but was actually spirit typed damage, it kind of made it extremely difficult to use any OGL products at all with Foundry, and they got around that by getting an agreement with, I think, Paizo to put in a hotfix that anything that had been written up to that point that used the old rules would automatically be like automated to change, and it would be fine to use the new rules, whether or not the original authors of the products like knew or did that in their PDFs or not. So like our old demon products suddenly started using Holy and Unholy in Foundry, whereas our new Devil product could not do that. And that wound up causing us some additional complications. So you may find something like that happening in 5e. However, I think that even though the 5e change looks like it has more overall like fundamental changes to classes and other things like that that are bigger shifts, it doesn't have anything as gigantic of a singular shift as removing alignment was from PF2 Remaster, and that's the only one that really got us on digital tools. So I would say we're not sure yet what it'll mean for digital tools. Obviously, it's possible to be mean about it and make them less compatible on digital tools, but I don't think they're going to try to make it less compatible. I think there's going to be a few friction points, but it probably shouldn't be as bad as that one Foundry thing I'm giving an example of, because the alignment removal was a big shift.
But was it a big shift? I mean, I guess it was a big shift, but well, I guess, I don't know. I mean, it's hiding something as opposed to adding something new. See, the big problem is when deleting things isn't a problem. It's when you add something that's required, because then how do you, like, then the new content breaks whenever you try to do that. So that's all I'm getting at. Anyhow, does anyone have any questions about this? I mean, is anyone looking forward to this? I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm always looking forward in some ways to an edition shift, but I'm always not in other ways. So there's different parts of me. Really? Why are you looking forward to it, Stephen? Let's see if it's for the same reasons as me.
I'm looking forward to it because new product, new D&D, new art, new concepts. You know, the game since 2014 has changed in ways no one even expected, and now it's fascinating. Someone was going through and explaining back in 2014 how there was Pathfinder, there was D&D, and there was a couple other games, but there was no movement for old school D&D. There was like, you know, there wasn't there was. No, there wasn't. Not to the point where it is now. It was a very closeted, very private, very regimented and gated community, as opposed to now where you put out an old school D&D Kickstarter and it makes $1 million. Okay, that never happened.
Okay, the OSR is definitely bigger in the 2020s than it was in 2014, but it was still out there in 2014, and it was still within tabletop circles relatively well known.
Fine. My point is that it was smaller overall than where it is now, and now the community and the world knows D&D, and it's 1 million times bigger. So coming out with a new product is weird because it should be celebrated and everyone talking about it, but it seems to only being talked about within our own community, which I don't understand. It really should have been like a bigger deal. Maybe it will be. Maybe they have a huge campaign coming out, but you know what? I'm just excited to see new stuff. But then again, I was excited to see the Vecna Eve of Ruin, so I keep being disappointed. So I guess I'll keep hoping for the best, and
I mean, it seemed like there were some good set pieces in some of the parts of Vecna Eve of Ruin, though.
Yeah, it was fine. As I said, it was fine. It was a fine game.
So it looks like you're excited for the same reason part of me is always excited, because I am a game designer. I want to see what changes. I'm always excited, interested in something new. There's always a part of me that's like thinking, that really likes what is going on. And it's like, yes, things are shifting on and it's a shame, but I'm usually overwhelmed by the part of me that is just curious. As a game designer, I'm always tinkering with my own stuff, and I always want to iterate and make it better. So I very much empathize with those game design instincts. I feel like 10 years is a pretty lengthy time for an edition cycle. So that 5e has had enough time that I don't think there's going to be that many people who are like, this was so short before they even shifted. It's a small shift after 10 years. Edition wise, this is one of the smaller amounts of shifts that you would see in that period of time.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Steven, let's see. One day you'll just make popcorn and watch the drama. Well, I don't know if there's really going to be any drama for this. I can't imagine there's going to be much drama. I think it's literally
there's going to be a little bit of edition boring, because there always is. But I think this update is small enough that there will be more like the 3.0, 3.5 level, not the like 3E, 4E level, which was gigantic.
Yeah, I think this is going to be pretty quiet, to be honest. I hate to say it. Not hate to say it, but I think it's going to be much to do about nothing.
We love to see it. It's the opposite of hating to say it.
Well, I guess so. All right.
Or maybe you like drama because it's fun.
Oh,
but
I
love to see it when there's less contention and more of, hey, cool, let's talk about this together. I like this thing. I don't like that one. What's going on? Analysis rather than like big drama.
Yeah, I like the drama. As everyone has Derek, if you're still on, he knows. He makes fun of me because I like drama.
He knows.
Drama is what makes the world go around, man. It's all right. I think I managed to fix.
Steven is fueled by drama.
I am fueled by drama. I'm fueled.
You said sometimes that you're fueled by drama.
I am. I'm totally fueled by drama. So. Hold on, let me see. I might have actually gotten the player's guide fixed. So, all right, everyone. Let's see. There's I think it's a new URL.
Ooh, shiny. It's a callback to the beginning of the episode.
Crap. It's a bad URL. Let me see if I can fix the URL.
It's a bad URL. That's not good.
I don't like the URL. See if I can fix
that. Explains what Steven was doing when I was wondering, because I was like trying to give shorter amounts of statements to have Steven come in, and he was like, "Oh, Mark, keep saying things," and I was like, he must be doing something, and he was working on that.
It bothers me when this happens. It bothers me. It bothers me when things break and I have to fix them. It's extremely annoying. It's like my whole life is annoying. Let's see. Can you change the URL in a Shopify? I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to fix this, and you keep everyone entertained.
Sure. So let's see. There's a question that says, like, what dramatic change would you like to see? I mean, I don't know. I think they're not going to make any gigantic shifts to things other than like changing some class balance that people were looking for. It'd be tough if they did something where they like overhauled the way to get like different stacking ticky tack bonuses in things, so that the bonus economy was like more consistent, and then use that to work on the encounter builders so that you could reliably expect that the battles would be a certain amount of difficulty and wouldn't swing as much from deadly and so on. Maybe make it a little harder to knock something completely out of the fight with a spell, with something where it's like you have to fail the save by 5 or more. Things like that are something that I would like. But then again, Pathfinder already does something somewhat similar to that. And so we've already got a game that does that. That does those things that I would like, that are like kind of wild and bigger changes. But I don't think that they necessarily should make a change like that, because it's going to make something that seems less recognizable to people.
All right, Mark, send me the link to the Battlezoo. Oh, I found it.
The old link or
the old link? I'm actually gonna fix the old link.
Okay, so the old link that I'm getting is this, Steven.
I got it.
Okay.
No, it had to update it because it won't do a redirect.
So Kurth said that the Druid rework in the playtest has Kurth afraid. So it's definitely true that that I know some people were less excited about the Druid rework than the Monk rework, but there's things going on with Druid that I think they have to look into, because there's like certain things about Druid that people really like, but then there's Moon Druid, and I'm not even saying that people don't like Circle of the Moon, just that they kind of can do everything. And so it's always tricky when you're making changes to something that was strong. When you're making changes to something like Monk that needed help, everyone's going to be like, yes, thank you for helping the thing that needed help. So it's always a bit of a question what's going to happen there.
I fixed it.
King Kowalski wonders if multi-classing should be banned in 5e. So you could try it. I mean, I kind of like being able to mix and match certain class things, but on the other hand, the existence of multi-classing, this 3E style, which is what I'm going to call it, because 5E uses the 3E style multi-classing, causes issues where it's hard to put some of the most important features that you have at first level, and to put very unique abilities that only one class should have, like kind of almost anywhere, because they can be poached in multi-classing. And so if you did do something, I would suggest something more like Pathfinder 2 multi-classing, where you never lose your main progression of your class, but you pay some other resource in order to get some stuff from the other classes, but not certain marquee features that you can just know are locked into someone whose main class is X. And that allows you to front load cool stuff at low levels of a class.
So someone actually mentioned, it's so funny. It's like, didn't you read the article at Game Informer? And I was like, you know what? I never did read the article. So real quick, I'm looking at the article. I just looked at the pretty pictures. So it says here that the revised game rules, including Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guides, and Monster Manual, will be backwards compatible with the entirety of 5th edition. The new books are nonetheless a big step forward in the game, reflecting a decade of iteration and evolution. Let's see. You can pre-order. The books are $49.99 each, which is actually a pretty good price point. They are each 384 pages. They're identically the same, which is weird. Never seen that before. Let's see, what else did they say? They have a whole bunch of exclusive details from Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford. Let's see. They have the new cover, new by the way. It embraces the game's revitalized approach to pushing forward legendary characters. So, that's something else, is that these are actual named characters, and it's the golden anniversary of the game, which is why I think they had a gold dragon on the cover. But then they had the red in the corner, which we all thought was a kobold. So that's why they made it gold, because they wanted it to be golden for the 50th year anniversary. Actually, it's a good article. I should have read the article. I'm kind of
I skimmed the article, and I didn't read about why it was a gold dragon, but I read more about like the rules things that were in there. There wasn't a lot new about the rules that you could find in that article that wasn't things that we have already seen if we're very plugged in.
And by the way,
some of the other changes
on the back of they do have the art for the back cover, and the back cover is them all flying on the gold dragon. So sorry, it's a bronze dragon. It's a bronze dragon. Oh, so it's not a gold dragon, it's a bronze dragon. All right, well, so it's a gold dragon, but then they're hanging out with a bronze dragon. That's weird. All right, well, whatever. So let's see. They actually do have the iterations of how they did the art, which I find fascinating. So you can see the different versions. What else? A lot of our chapters are openings of famous heroes. Almost every chapter opening features a different hero, a group of heroes in a different setting. So you've got Dragonlance and other ones like Ravenloft, and then the Dungeon Master's Guide is going to be about the villains. So, and the cover is going to have the villains and all the threats to the villain. Oh, God. So they're setting up the adversarial campaign where, okay, the heroes are on the DM, the player's guide, and the villains are in the DM guide. There we go. Let's see. On that art, you get to see famous locations for famous villains. It's the opposite side of the coin. It's interesting. Let's see. They said many of the others default to Forgotten Realms setting. These new core books embrace the multiverse D&D, which everyone knows. That kind of makes sense. They're going to have Spelljammer, Dragonlance, Planescape.
And that's why Vecna Eve of Ruin had to go to all of those places. I actually do want to key into that. I do want to key into that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Someone on comment on our last video had like a response to me where Linda and I had both said that this was a page-pace constraint issue, and that probably there wasn't anything the designers could do about it. And the response was like, Wizards has complete control over what they do. They could have just changed it. So I want to think about that for a little bit, because the problem with that is thinking of a company as if it's a single person. There were probably a lot of factors on that product that was part of the D&D 2024 launch that forced it to be what it was. And I think the multiverse focus meant that they needed to go to these different places in the multiverse in the adventure. They probably had that and level range and certain other things that was a marketing push. Maybe not by the marketing team, but by certain other people who would have been at different levels in the company. And it was not necessarily a single person who was like, I want this to be this, only have 150 pages to do 11 levels that go to 7 different multiverse worlds and all these things. But instead, different people had different requirements, and then they were trying to meet it as best as they could for the launch. Especially for a launch product like this, there are huge pressures, and there are very many sort of like competing cooks in the kitchen who are also like sometimes asking for completely contradictory things. I know this from being in the tabletop RPG industry. Obviously, I wasn't there in the room at wotc when they were making this decision, but it would be very typical if that is what happened.
You weren't in the room where it happened.
Yes.
You know what that's from?
I've heard it a lot of times. Where was it from initially?
It is from Hamilton. It's a song.
That's clearly not where it was first from. I've heard it well
God,
before Hamilton
you're so
came
annoying.
out.
Yes, I know. I'm talking about where I'm quoting it from. It's a famous song
Fair
from
enough.
Hamilton called "The Room Where It Happens." It's only one of the most popular plays of all time, with one of the most popular songs in this popular play. So that's where it's from. If you're going through the whole ideology, yes, it's probably from 100 other things. So that's what I'm
I was just curious where it initially came from, because I've just used it all the time, and I have no idea.
There you go. So it looks like if you subscribe to Game Informer, you will get a 8-page detailed preview. And the funny thing is, I love Game Informer. It's actually one of my favorite magazines, and I don't have a subscription, so I'm going to subscribe right now because I love Game Informer. Game Informer is actually one of the biggest game magazines in the world. So there we go. Completing my order. 2-year subscription for $35. I think that is a good deal. I miss getting magazines. Don't you? So anyhow.
Magazines were kind of like, as a kid, just being like, oh my gosh, let me open up my Dragon magazine. What was in it? They were fun.
Oh, you kidding? I miss magazines. So it says here they have an in-depth tour of the design work expressed in the books themselves as described in this month's Game Informer. It's an 8-page article including details on all 3 books, including new character options, building player bastions, new Apex tier monsters, and surprising important inclusion of what's arguably the oldest D&D campaign setting of all, Greyhawk. Ah, that explains why. I've been seeing articles about Greyhawk, and I didn't know where it was
articles
coming from.
that were a little more. The ones I saw were just like, is it based only on Greyhawk and not Forgotten Realms now? They were kind of not getting the nuance of that it was multiverse based and would have all the different settings, which includes Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. There is the print. Is there a digital version? Are we happy with wotc now? What did I miss? I'm not happy. Here's the thing. I fully support D&D and the people and the designers at wotc. It's just some of the decisions that were made. Oh, that was another big news article we completely forgot.
What was it?
Is that Cynthia Williams got a new job.
She got a CEO spot, right?
CEO job, yes, at Funko. And that because there was like, she just left and she literally quit and then started this new job like 2 weeks later, which means that doesn't just happen. She has been interviewing for that job for months and had a contract ready to go. And then she had it all ready to go and she literally quit with no notice, left wotc with 2 weeks notice, and then started this new job at Funko like 2 weeks later, which is mind-boggling because now she's the CEO. She went from the president of wotc to CEO of this entire company. So there you go. That's what happened, which is interesting in its own right, because she definitely left them in a lurch. That definitely was not like, oh, it's like
so where Steven went to that from was he was saying that like we support the designers at Wizards who are making the content, but that a lot of the videos that Steven has put those very spicy images for, and I've sometimes had less spicy takes than him on them in the video, and sometimes not, have been about business decisions that were made by higher ups at wotc. That there was literally no input that was allowed from like the people who are actually making the game.
But this happens all the time. I mean, in a creative field, this happens a lot where the creative people and the suits will make decisions based on very different requirements. And once in a while they mesh up, and very often they don't. The thing is that what's fascinating is that the downfall of wotc, of TSR, we'll go way back. The downfall of TSR was that they were really, really good at coming up with games and concepts and worlds and designs, and they were really, really, really bad at business. So bad at business that they even hired the wrong people to then run the business. And this is not exclusive to them. This even happened with a company you might have heard of called Apple Computer. Is that Apple, they had Steve Jobs was in charge, and Steve Jobs was doing an okay job, and not great. And then they brought in Sully to take over, and they kicked out Steve Jobs. They literally kicked him out. And Scully, or is it Scully or Sully, did such a bad job that when he left and Steve Jobs came back, they brought Steve Jobs back, they only had enough money to run Apple for like 6 weeks. And then they were going to go bankrupt. Okay, think about this. This is now a company worth like $4 trillion, by the way. So they went from a company that was one of the biggest IPOs in history of all time, one of the hottest companies of the 80s, that was doing well, but not really working. It was falling behind from IBM. They brought in someone, Steve Jobs didn't get along with him, fired. The company went from bad to much worse. Steve Jobs came in, turned that company around, and he was a different person at that point. And, he was right place, right time. He needed some time away. He was older and more mature, and it became the trillion-dollar company it is now. And then he died, and then they got the right people in. The thing is that it's not just you knowing to hire. That's not just you having the business acumen. It's hiring the right people too. And if you read any of those books in history, D&D, man, they hired the wrong people, because the person they had, the other Williams, like, she was the heir to the Buck Rogers fortune. So she kept pushing Buck Rogers to be in like all their products. So it was like, like, it's one of these like weird things where it's like she had her own priorities, and she kept making her priorities the priorities of TSR. My favorite one is that one of the people had like a needlepoint company, so they made D&D needlepoint just for the needlepoint company. You talk about conflict of interest. That is the biggest conflict of interest of all time. And I would love to see those D&D needlepoints. I got a lot of those weird D&D. You see this a fair amount, the D&D, they weren't stickers. So back when I was a kid, you would have these plastic sheets. And what you would do is my camera's moving, is that you would rub the plastic sheets, and then it would transform the full color image to a piece of paper. And I used to love those, and I used to play with them all the time. And there was D&D ones. You still see them advertised every so often. People have them. Let me move my camera back. And, yeah. So, anyhow, that's my issue, is that, the problem is like, to make D&D a $1 billion brand, it's very hard. It's very, very hard. That even goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning about how you can either market D&D to the core customers, or you can try to market to everyone. And if you market to everyone, are you going to lose the core customers? Which is
it's an interesting question that's been taken throughout the years, and by listening to the core customers who preside on these online polls and surveys is probably a good way to not lose them, I would say. We also had a super chat that asked, does Mark really know how the game is played, the art of the trade, how the sausage gets made? We just assume that it happens, but no one else is in the room where it happens.
That's from the song.
Yes. I know. I added extra lines from the song that weren't in super chat.
Okay. I was wondering. So, yes, that is. It's a great song. So anyhow, let's see. Steve personally brought in Scully. It was quite betrayal. Right, that's the thing. If Steve brought him in, so it made it even more. Like, Steve Jobs, you read about this, he wasn't pissed. He was furious. Like, when he got kicked out of Apple, he sold all of his shares except one. I think he kept one share, and that was it. And then instead, he put all of his money into Pixar, and then he owned Disney. It's Steve Jobs. But when he died, he was the single largest shareholder at Disney and Apple. So it's insane. I mean, it's mind-boggling how successful he was. It was like he didn't do it once, he did it twice, where he was just, yeah. Anyhow, yeah, that's a fascinating. If you ever want to read about that whole history, it's fascinating about Steve Jobs and Scully. It's nightmare. Right, he started Next, and actually, Next had a Next operating system. When I was going to Carnegie Mellon, the CMU co-wrote the operating system with Next, and we actually had Next computers at school. And then Next kind of wasn't doing very well, and then it was actually bought by Apple after he took over Apple, and then the operating system for Apple became the Next operating system. So everything is connected. Like, it's fascinating. I'm getting really down into the weeds, but I did fix the Eldamon link, so there you go, everyone. You're welcome. So it turned out it was the country's issue. I don't know why it was limiting it to other countries, and I couldn't override it, so I just had to make a new link, which sucks because it means none of the old links will work anymore. But at least it order. At least now it works. So, and I don't know why it did that. Anyway, so
very strange.
Yes, it is strange and unusual. Oh, did you see the?
It was actually was it actually on the end of the Shopify and not on the user end?
Yeah, it was Shopify, but it was.
Oh man,
helpful.
Steven, that's 1 in 1,000. That's 0.1%.
It was. Well, because it's weird because I've set up 100 things on Shopify, but this one had this markets restricted, which I didn't set. So I don't know why it has markets restricted, and I couldn't override it. So
that's bizarre.
It basically did this thing where it made that product restricted in certain markets, and then it on top of that, why does it do a 404 error? Why doesn't it redirect you to a different page? Like that's what I would do. It's just I don't know weird. Why, and it's actually nightmarish because that's one of those that you might sit there forever and never figure out. And it was only that like between sleuthing and figuring out and seeing that it wasn't working in certain people's markets, I was able to like think about it and go, wait, let me look. And sure enough, it was like a setting.
To be fair, the first thing I asked you is if it could be based on the region that they're in.
Right, but why would I want to restrict Canada? it's like I could. You're totally right, but it's like okay, maybe sure, restrict Russia. I get it. Restrict Ukraine, right? Like war zones.
Why?
Oh, because they're war zones. You literally can't deliver to them.
I see. Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense for the physical products.
Well,
but it's a PDF.
Yeah, there's issues. Well, there's a PDF. But there are reasons, also legal, whatever. You might not want to deal with Russia and stuff. Like, there's a lot of things. Anyhow, my point being is that the point being is that I didn't think it would want to restrict major countries. It's like, oh, Spain's not working, Canada's not working, Brazil's not working. I'm like, okay, those countries are working, but they weren't. And I couldn't override it. So, whatever. I give up. Alrighty. Well, I guess if we have nothing else really to talk about, I think we're going to call it a little early because I have someone needs to talk to me. So...
I mean, that makes sense to me. I think we gave a pretty good guide of what to expect in an edition change, just to let people know about the way that discourse goes, the way that things shift with books, and the way that it's going to work, but you're going to find those old books phased out most likely. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll come back years later to this video and be like, Mark, we never phased out any of the old books. Mm-hmm. But what I've seen is on the margins, it's likely that you will, even if you don't think you do. I did, and I didn't think I was going to, for multiple other edition changes. So that's what to expect. I hope that this helps you. If you are looking forward to, excited for D&D 2024, I hope it turns out to be as good as you hope. And if you are skeptical of D&D 24, I hope it's better than you're worried that it's going to be.
I think it's going to be fun. I'm not that worried. I think it's going to be awesome. Everyone's going to
I hope it's as good as you hope, like I said.
I think it's going to be the best game ever made in history of the world. Do you? Yeah. I think no one's going to ever top it. Not even you, Mark.
Okay, Steven. I don't think that's what you really think.
No, not really. But I'm still excited for it.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I found where I have to set all the markets. Interesting.
There you go.
I have to set it. I have to manually set over 200 markets.
Oh, we had a good web server joke in chat. Why did the web server with broken DNS settings go to therapy? Because it couldn't resolve its own issues.
I don't get it.
There we go.
Let's see. We're adding countries for markets. So, wait, I can't do that. Let me figure this out.
While you figure it out, I should we should probably close it out if we finish things off. So everyone, until next time, if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat.
Bye.